Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Naveed Husain. I am a divorce attorney in Chicago. And on this channel, we talk a lot about marriage. We talk about divorce. We talk about men being providers. We talk about roles and things like that. And Alhamdulillah, I have a very amazing panel here for you guys today. I kind of bring the perspective of what's happening at the end of the marriage, right? But Alhamdulillah, we have Imam Mahad here. We have Baba Ali, Sheikh Joe Bradford, who can give us different perspectives on this whole marriage timeline. We have Baba Ali, who's impacting people as they're ready to get married. Suhba Institute, as we'll learn about inshallah, is helping people counseling, giving classes. Sheikh Joe Bradford answering questions for those in beginning of their marriage, in the middle of their marriage, and after their marriage. So I think inshallah this will be a very beneficial discussion, and I think there'll be a lot of unique perspectives that will be brought. And so inshallah, I would like to start with some introductions and kind of connecting, your story to your perspective on marriage and divorce, inshallah. So we'll start with Sheikh Joe Bradford. If you can give us just a introduction, and we'll take it from there, inshallah.
Yeah, so I'll just make sure I'm unmuted. Yeah, so my name is Joe Bradford. I hold a graduate degree in Islamic Studies and have been working in finance for the past decade or more. In my financial coaching and planning practice, a lot of what comes up is dealing with people that are about to get married and can't come to terms with their money, or that are married and the money, I would say the money's coming up as a symptom. And that's another topic we can delve into. But yeah, so working in the community and offering services to the community, a lot of these things are intertwined. So I try to answer these things holistically, taking the best practices, financially, the best practices Islamically, putting them together. And I think what's pertinent to the conversation here is a lot of that focuses around marriage and children and family.
SubhanAllah. And Imam Mahad, mashallah, part of the Suhba Institute, maybe you can give us a little bit about yourself and also the institute that you and your wife had started.
Sure, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. My name is Mahad Qamar, raised in Houston, Texas for the majority of my life, alhamdulillah. Both my wife and I, we attained our bachelor's degree in Islamic law from Malaysia. And after that, we pursued our master's in pastoral counseling and marriage and family therapy. And a part of the conversation could also be that we got married at 19, alhamdulillah. So that in and of itself is enough to probably push you down a path of wanting to kind of, work on your relationship. But it was a lot of it was really going into our master's degree. What pushed us into that was just seeing a lot of friends and family and community members going through divorce, and we being one of the first groups or couples in our age group to even get married. Many of our friends didn't get married till maybe 5-6 years later, if not even later than that. Just seeing that in the community, and on top of that, being in Malaysia, we found out that Muslims aren't even allowed to get their nikah done over there unless they've done 16 hours of premarital training. And for that, when we were there as students in our Islamic degree, it just clicked for us, and we said, oh, okay, we have to do this, right? We have to do something when we come back. And that's kind of one of the goals that we have at Suhba Institute, where we're trying to provide an A to Z resource guide or services ourselves, or if we can't do it, then trying to connect people with others who are providing those services for individuals who are marriage minded, who are about to get married, who want premarital training, or they are looking to find avenues, or maybe they're looking for counseling or arbitration, or looking for divorce lawyers. So kind of our goal at Suhba when it comes to the marriage realm is provide Muslims with resources that they might not have easily accessible to themselves.
And Baba Ali, mashallah, Jazakallah khair for joining us. A little introduction about yourself, half DEEN. I'm sure many have heard about that service, but please give us an introduction for those who may not know. You are muted.
All right, I should know, since I'm in IT, I should know these things. so I'll make it ready. This is Baba Ali. Some of you guys know me from my YouTube videos or the children videos, but my favorite of all the different projects I work on is a project called Half DEEN, where we helped 2,600 people, over 2,600 people find the other half. We do things a bit differently. We're not a swiping app. We're not a matchmaker or anything like that. We basically took everything that everybody else is doing and just basically doing the exact opposite. So when they're doing these swiping apps and just basically reducing it down to your picture, your first name and your age, we are trying to give you a lot more details about the person because you need those details to help you decide the right person. When we do live events, we don't do any speed dating whatsoever. Instead, we do these unique activities to help you learn about each other in a more meaningful way and a more natural way. So our events are the most successful that I know of in the world, not in the United States or Canada or even the UK. It is by far in the world. No one even comes close as a percentage because, again, when you do things differently, you're going to be more likely to get different results. So our perspective is that if we go back to Islam and we do things within the halal boundaries, we can be very, very successful. Unfortunately, we copy a lot of things that non-Muslims do. Our matrimonial websites are all based on Tinder. Like that's what the swiping apps are, right? It's just designed for people for hooking up. So naturally, we're going to have very similar results of people trying to hook up using these apps. And today we find out about 20% of Muslim females, forget the males, a lot of them are already doing that, of females are actually using these apps, Muslim dating apps, to hook up, and that's it. And then you see the speed dating process, you see a lot of these people that are going through the speed dating things, they're not finding success. And why is because it's designed for a 3-minute relationship. That doesn't work either. So we're looking to get long marriages. We're not looking for a 3-hour relationship. So anyways, we're doing things differently. We're not trying to copy non-Muslims on what they're doing. We're trying to do things at our own standards, inshallah, our own way, with the hope that maybe one time, for finally, non-Muslims look at us and say, wow, let's copy what these guys are doing because they're very successful in the way we're doing it. And this is what we're trying to do different, inshallah. And that's it.
So from my perspective as a divorce attorney, it looks like to me that we are facing a marriage crisis, right? Not only are individuals not getting married, individuals are not having children, but I also see the divorce rate climbing and climbing. And maybe it's because I'm seeing marriages fail, right? But I guess, I'm going to pose the question to Imam Mahad. Do you think, from you're kind of addressing things from the front end, do you also see kind of this marriage crisis amongst the people that you're dealing with?
No, not at all. I think we have it under control. I think we're doing a wonderful job. I don't think there's a single imam, a single counselor, a single, anyone in the space that would probably disagree with you on this. I mean, where do we start? If we just look at the statistics, right? Typically in the US, we border around like 46, 48% when it comes to the divorce rate. Okay, well, that's people who choose to get married. Okay, so of those who ended up getting married, if we have about 46 to 48% that are getting divorced at some point or another, how many of those individuals are living fulfilling, happy marriages, right? Not just happy marriages for the husband and the wife, but also they have loving homes where the children feel comfortable, they feel encouraged. It's a massive problem, right? It's a massive problem. And on top of that, I mean, even if we're not talking about the marriage itself, the process of getting married for many of these young men and women can be stifled over and over again, either through cultural expectations or through parental expectations. There's so many angles to look at it. And myself, my wife and I, obviously at our institute, we work with a lot of young professionals, those who are in the college age range, and we're also chaplains at the University of Houston and at Texas A&M. So we get to really see folks in their college ages, as well as those who are professionals now in their careers, and those who are in their 20s and 30s and 40s, and those who are divorcees or widows. We're also trying to go through this process, and it is challenging. And I think, alhamdulillah, having more organizations and resources like DEEN and the various other programs out there, I think there's benefit in there, but I think education is one of the major things that's lacking. Because we can provide all the resources, but until that husband or wife or that potential the man and woman want to actually educate themselves and improve their communication skills, they want to improve their understanding of how to be able to deal with conflict management or their financial understandings. Until they do that, right, all we can really do is make dua for them and say good luck, like how it's kind of always been. It's like, all right, good luck, you'll figure it out. Well, the statistics are telling us explicitly we're not figuring it out, obviously, right? It's not working out. And if you wanted Muslim statistics, the Family Youth Institute, it's a group of Muslim psychologists and counselors. They put out a number about roughly 1/3 of Muslim marriages end in divorce. And I have some interesting statistics to kind of share from Malaysia. It's not very extensive, but from the preliminary research that I've done whenever I was, we were putting our premarital training together, they have a divorce rate of about 38% in Malaysia. Now, the interesting thing about Malaysia is, though, that only half the population is Muslim, and the other half, you either have Buddhist, Christian, atheist, Hindu, you have a mixture of individuals over there. Now, only the Muslim segment over there is required to get that premarital training before the nikah. But even then, their statistics are way better than us, alhamdulillah, in that sense. So for my personal requirement has been that if I'm conducting anyone's nikah, they have to go through premarital training. It doesn't have to be with us through suhbah, it can be anywhere. But as you said, like, we deal with a lot of individuals on the, coming through the door, but we also get a lot of individuals who want to, bust through that door as quick as possible, and they want to leave the relationship as well. So just by that dynamic, for me, I don't feel comfortable showing up to a masjid anymore and saying, what's your name? What's your name? All right, let's get the show on the road. Let's do it. Let me pocket that honorarium and I'm out, right? I can make lunch with my family. Like, there has to be a level of investment that the community has, that family members have, that these young men and women have, not just to the idea of marriage, but really to the idea of having a healthy, successful marriage.
And Sheikh Joe, on that idea of, the idea of marriage, why do you think people are delaying this cornerstone of their life? Why do Muslims feel like they have to accomplish something else before they get married?
So, as for the reasons for delay, I mean, I think they're probably, they're numerous. I see the idea that, well, I mean, first of all, there are some reasons that for delay that are good, right? Other reasons for delay are really centered around kind of, what will people say if you get married too young? What will people say if you haven't finished your degree? What will people say if you're not board certified when you do this? What will people, so I think some of the talk is centered around that kind of thing, of looking for approval from society. Other aspects are really just the ability to get married due to financial constraints, wanting to finish the education so that you're not marrying someone and then not with them all the time. It's hard to be married when you're a student. And then I would say thirdly is actually finding compatibility. I think one thing that a lot of people have come to realize now is that compatibility is just not, what I like. I saw a quote yesterday. Chaos is not compatibility. I'm sorry, chaos is not chemistry, and chemistry is not compatibility. So some people, the excitement of being in a chaotic situation, and I mean chaotic in like the most broad terms, right? Not that it's necessarily evil, but it's just like things are happening. They look at that as, oh, we had great chemistry. No, you were just hyped on adrenaline. He was hyped on adrenaline. She was hyped on adrenaline, and your families were pushing you, and therefore you got married, and then you had your $350,000 wedding, and then everything fell apart in a week because what you were looking at was chaos. It was not chemistry. It was not compatibility. And then sometimes you have chemistry with people, you hit it off, you like each other, but there's no compatibility. You don't have the same values. You don't look at the world the same way. And simply being from the same part of the world, the same neighborhood, your parents are friends, that's not going to cut it. So yeah, I think the delay in marriage is more people are aware of compatibility issues, but I'd say the majority is it's a keeping up with the Joneses type of thing, where they want to have a certain status to be able to show that status off to make them a desirable spouse, and because everything about status now is pegged to career and earnings and degrees, and career and earnings and degrees are, take time, especially if you're looking at a professional degree. It means that your social life is delayed, and therefore your marriage is delayed as well.
And Baba Ali, kind of that question about chemistry and compatibility, how do you think that people are finding compatible spouses now, and how do you think they should be finding compatible spouses and have that chemistry involved?
That's a great question. You know, the way we're finding it right now is very superficial. And we oftentimes, when we talk about being superficial, we usually pointing towards the men, because naturally everyone knows that men can be very superficial when it comes to beauty, and this is just the way we're wired. But we never talk about the female side of it as well. Many women can be very superficial when it comes not to physical attraction necessarily, it can be to a success. And then because for men, if a woman's beautiful enough, we'll give her a pass on things that we wouldn't give other women, right? Oh, if she's beautiful enough, I don't care if she has a little bit of a temper. I don't care if she has no education. I don't care if this, I don't care that. It's like pass, 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 pass. You just get all these check marks checked. And so for some women, if the man is successful enough, they will start checking all those marks off too. And what's happening, you can check all those checks that you had on your list, but then when you get married, you get a wake-up call, a rude wake-up call that, hey, maybe you should look for some of these things, because now you don't have enough compatibility. Because let's just take a scenario like a man marries a very, very beautiful woman, a woman marries a very, very successful man. They're both attracted in that way. The first time you realize that things are not working out, how is that attraction going to help you? How is this success going to help you? It's not. And then you realize, oh, I think I married the wrong person. And then So the issue is we don't look at these deeper things that are important. And what happens is when we the people who build apps, reduce it down to your picture, your first name, and your age, what are we really telling you about these people? Absolutely nothing. We're just feeding you what you want to be fed. And that's not good either. It's like a kid who says, I just want to eat ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you just give it to him and he's happy because he's going to eat ice cream. This is how they eat ice cream. They're just swiping, right? So it's just like, they're happy, they're excited. We got 4 million people on our website. But the question is, what do you know about these people? Absolutely nothing. And then when these people are getting married at our time, remember, our generation are the people who are getting divorced at 31%, right? This generation is a much higher rate, because at least at our generation, we had at least a little bit more depth and questions to ask these people. These people don't have anything. We just literally copied, we're just swiping. It's just so ridiculous. And then we're expecting these marriages. I mean, think about it for 1 second. We're expecting these marriages to last 20 years. We don't know anything about this person.
And Mama, not to cut you off, but I think the worst part about it is, and you're in technology, and I work adjacent with many people in the technology world. The technology that can match people up according to what's meaningful is used for matching corporations with top tier employees.
Yeah.
So they've actually mapped, the psychological framework to the technology to be able to say, this employee's, values and thinking matches our corporate values and thinking. Let's hire them. And it's not like groundbreaking stuff, right?
Nope.
But you have companies out there that, quite frankly, are invested in keeping you single, because the more you swipe, the more super likes or whatever they call them, or super dupers or whatever it is, you buy, and then you just you keep the addiction going without actually having a meaningful relationship created. And
we know that this whole dopamine, the release of dopamine is coming, that people wake up, first thing you do is, what do? You're checking your phone. This is not when you're bored and standing in line. What's the first thing you do? You check your phone. Is it just a coincidence it's you doing it? Look around you when you're standing in line. How many people are handing out their phones? It's a part of our addiction. Now, the difference is men swipe like this and women swipe like this, up and down. Like they're literally looking for the bottom of TikTok, bottom of Instagram, bottom of everything. Everyone just, men and women, they're just searching, and they do this all day. And no matter how great the last video was, you can always go further and further and further. And this paradox of choice also makes it more difficult. When you have too many choices, I want to give you guys an example. I want you guys to imagine the analogy of you guys are looking to hire for somebody for your company. And normally, back in the days, even today, if you want to hire somebody, you want to get maybe an agency or somebody, send me the top 5 people that you guys think is good to me, right? Or somebody filter. You don't just say anyone who wants a job, show up at my front door. And then you just show up with no resume, they have a little name badge, and that's it. You don't literally know nothing about them. You have their picture, their first name, and their age. That's basically the swiping app. This is the matrimonial thing. You don't know nothing about them. And based on this, I'm supposed to decide who I want to marry. So we have a large number of candidates because everybody wants a job, but there's no filtering to say, hey, this is an electrical engineering position that requires this much experience, that requires this, this. So this is the depth that we're missing, and we just completely remove. And this is the problem we have when we have, as an employer, I don't know if this is a good match for me. As an employee, that person knows she's a good match for me. And this is the conflict that we're going to have. And of course, they go to the sheikh and say, please marry us. And they say, okay, at least take some premarital courses that says you will be a good employee, you'll be a good employer, all this stuff. Most people don't even do that. I mean, this should be the basic requirement, as the sheikh said. There's no way we should be letting people just marry just very quickly because it met on, especially on these apps or just through the very superficial ways, because we are just increasing our divorce rate. I honestly, you guys can quote me here, I would be very shocked if our divorce rate isn't over 60% in the next few years. I mean, wow. The last time we did a statistic, and I remember this was 2019, I think the last number I came across was 45% for Muslims. And this was in 2019. When I say 2019, this is right before the pandemic. But we haven't done it. I haven't seen any studies since then, but all of us know after the pandemic, it really tested relationships, because all these people who married for superficial reasons and did not check their compatibility, did not have any premarital background for courses, they were stuck in a room together. And they start really, this person's getting under my skin and I can't stand this person, et cetera, et cetera. And then now they use the first thing that happened, huge for non-Muslims as well, is went right to the divorce office as soon as everything opened up because I'm getting a divorce. And I know people who've been married very, very long period of time, 15 years, almost 20 years, divorce, or leading towards divorce because their relationships were truly tested. Like all these superficial things that we all are searching for, that we're just, it really appeals to us. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests you, and you will be tested, I guarantee you that. When you're tested, what are you going to do? Because if your foundation is weak, the first storm that hits you is going to fall down. Because our parents and grandparents, they had storms hit them as well. How did they end up still standing? They had more than just superficial things. They had DEEN, and that understanding of DEEN that helped them strong too. But we don't even have that anymore. I mean, most of these people, when they ask for DEEN questions on these matrimonial websites, do you eat halal meat? Do you read Quran? Do you pray? That's it. Yeah. 3 questions. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and so based off that, so what should we be looking for, right? What should we be looking for in our spouses or in a potential spouse to get married? Obviously, we don't want to look at these superficial things, but what should we? And of course, you know, we hear DEEN, we hear looks, but you know, is there anything practical, anything that we can hold with our hands in terms of what we should be looking for in our spouses? And maybe Imam Mahad can start with that answer.
Sure, inshallah. Obviously, we know the Messenger of Allah sallam, he gave us those 4 principles, right? That of DEEN, of beauty, of lineage. Looking at those main principles that we have, obviously that can be applied towards anybody when you're looking at an individual. But the Messenger of Allah, another commonly quoted hadith in this realm that I think a lot of people have not really been exposed to as much, is that the Messenger of Allah also told us that the person should be married, the Muslim should be married to someone who has mukafa'a or kafa'a, which is the idea of compatibility. And in our Islamic schools, the scholars, you know, they differentiated and said, okay, well, what does that really mean? Because the Messenger of Allah didn't define, okay, it means X, Y, and Z in realms of compatibility. But if we left it completely open, it is that realm of being able to connect with the other person, as we said, right? And Sheikh Joe mentioned, and Baba Ali as well, talking about like this low-level chemistry, I would call it, right? I think a lot of times when Muslims are in the courting phase or trying to get to know one another for marriage, it's like, you know, you see the same kind of things over and over again. It's like, okay, so what'd you guys do? Oh, we went to a movie. Okay, what'd you guys do after that? We went to boba tea afterwards. Okay, what'd you guys talk about? Marvel versus DC, and it's like, okay, wonderful. So all low-level chemistry stuff that basically you would, you know, all the stuff that you would do with a friend, you're trying to do with this person to see if you can have fun. Here's like the popping of the bubble right now. You can have fun with a lot of people in your life, right? You're not just trying to find someone that you'll have fun with, right? You can, inshallah, hopefully that's definitely something to try to establish and see if your personalities mesh over there. But unfortunately, it feels like a lot of times these folks, what they're doing is they're putting all their energy into that and seeing, okay, let's have more fun. And if we're not properly asking those questions to see if we're compatible at that level or not, that's what's important. And I think the distinction to be made is that how do you differentiate between commonalities in hobbies and in, you would say interests versus core values? That's the biggest thing, because when you look in the marriage counseling realm, they talk about the notion that you can have different interests and hobbies altogether, right? My wife could care less about basketball, right? She knows about Hakeem Olajuwon, that's about it, because we're blessed to be in Houston, alhamdulillah. But she doesn't, know anything about LeBron. My son's talking about LeBron all the time because I talked to him about LeBron. So it's like you can have different interests and different kind of hobbies, but if your core values don't align, that's where many of us kind of fall into some issues. And that core values, as Baba was mentioning, have to connect with, number one, first and foremost, as Muslims, part of our deen, that number one, whatever we do in this life, we're trying to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That mindset in and of itself will help you align on many things, not all things, many things, when it comes to perhaps financing, when it comes to children, when it comes to, various things. There will also be times where you might align very much when it comes to your religious perspectives and your worldview, but you'll have differences when it comes to finances. You'll have differences when it comes to family interaction and engagement. So those are all things that have to really be taken into account. One of the resources I'll provide is that we have a free resource called the 260 Questions Before Getting Married. It's a free resource. You can find it on Suhba Institute's Instagram page, and you'll find that link in the bio. And it's, I would say, the last, I think 40 questions is just for those who have been either previously engaged or previously in a relationship. So really it's 240 for people who are maybe just entering this realm for the first time. But it's questions that go through personality, it goes through finances, it goes through religious practice, and even your perspective and view of religion. It goes to your personality types. There's various questions that we use over there. And kind of how it was created is that typically, people might be hesitant to jump to the questions when it comes to finances, for example, right? Well, what we try to do is that each question list is built in a way to kind of build up, to kind of intensify as it goes. So imagine the very first question you have is, what is the most that you would spend on a lunch typically if you went out and eat, right? Seems pretty harmless, right? Opposed to how much do you make and how much do you expect to be able to, provide for me, and what is that going to be your contribution in the relationship? So it kind of, enters a little bit higher and higher. So that's kind of the goal with this marriage questionnaire, this list. It's meant for individuals who are about to get engaged, those who are even engaged, and even I think married couples can benefit from it because you're able to hash out certain questions that might not have been hashed out before the marriage. And obviously premarital education and then going to a counselor and being able to walk through these things as well will only provide more benefit, inshallah.
So if I could jump in on the issue of core values, because I hear this mentioned a lot, and again, I'm only bringing it up because I think there's a need to caution about it. Given that we are in a religious community, the default answer by people about core values is, well, my core values are Islam, duh, right? So that and maybe Mahad, you can go into some detail about that, because somebody says, well, it's absolutely important that my spouse praise, right? But they themselves are a habitual liar, right? So where is the core value of Islam when it comes to these character flaws? So I think drilling down on what a core value is, and I can tell you from my own training and therapy and things like that, it's not an easy question to answer, but you have to be able to answer it about yourself before you can say, I'm going to look for it in somebody else. So how do you guys deal with that situation and helping people realize, it's not important to me that they're just overtly religious. I want a person who embodies a core value of care or kindness, or
So
That's a great point.
how do you guys figure that out on your website? For example, how can you differentiate and find out what core values? I know we talked about the questions. Maybe that can help people find out what their own core values are and find it on other people. But on your website, or in the ways that you are connecting people, how are you able to differentiate and have people realize what their values are and what the other person's values are?
Those are great questions. So one of the things is we want to stay away from people answering questions to tell you what you want to hear. And the way we do that is by asking questions that don't have right or wrong answers. So we don't ask, are you a good Muslim? Do you pray? Do you fast? Because I can't tell if you're lying or not. So what we have to do is we have to formulate questions that both answers look correct, depending on what your understanding of Islam is, depending on what your understanding of the world is, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we do on the website. We try to ask questions that don't seem to have one straight, clear answer. Like, for example, let me ask you a question like, when it comes to finances, do you see money as financial freedom or financial security? Now, if you say financial freedom, that means you're more likely to be a spender. That's a nice way of something spender or saver. We use those type of words. Financial security is more like I'm more likely to feel like to save that money rather than spend it. Now, you need to find someone who's more compatible on the way you are going to view money, and that's just one example. But instead of saying you're a spender or saver, like somebody else might say that, people are going to all go to saving because we don't want to look bad. But financial security, financial freedom, those are like easier. But at like live events, for example, to answer your question, we try to stay away from the typical Q&A thing that we do as people do at speed dating events, because we feel like some people are really great at interviews. People know how to say what they need to say to get the job, right? And then when you get hired, you realize this person is not who we expected him to be. And that's why most companies give you a probation period, because they know there's a flaw within the interviewing process. Some people are great talkers, and some people who are extroverts like me can do really well in interviews. And an introvert who will be a better candidate than me may miss out on the opportunity because he just doesn't have the social skills to do well and to shine in the interview process. So what we do, instead of doing the QA, we have activities that are going to show you parts of their character that you wouldn't normally see. I had a sister approach me in Toronto, said, brother, thank you so much for the mind time activity. I said, why? Those two brothers, I was actually interested in marriage. As soon as I saw their behavior in that activity, I crossed them off. And so I would have never seen it doing just typical Q&A. I just want to appreciate that. I get very similar results from other people. Say, hey, like I'll give you guys an example. If I put you in a situation where just asking you question, answer, this is what typically 99% of people do when they look to get married, online or offline. You just don't know much, right? There could be telling what you want to hear, et cetera, et cetera. But if I put you in a situation where I'm going to be playing an activity where your team will be playing against another team, your table versus another table, it will be a stressful situation because you'll be timed. Everyone at your table has to work together to resolve something. It's a competitive thing. So now everyone, how do you guys, first of all, at your table, figure out whose role is doing what? Who's the leader here? Who's working together? Are we more, what are we doing? What's our plan? Is there even a plan? I don't care. Let me just take over. You guys just watch what I'm doing. Is someone dominant here? Are we team orientated here? What are we doing? Like, what's our plan? And then the other table, if they win or lose, how do they act? How are you interacting with the opposite gender? Are you too comfortable? Are you this and that? All these things that you would never see will kind of show up in the ways that people kind of like hide, but they can't hide it in that competitive spirit because they can't put, like if you're analyzing body language, yeah, you can do it, but I can't focus on my eyes and focus on my arms and where my legs are pointing. I can't focus on trying to cover everything because eventually something will show. And doing these different activities, you will see sides of them that you would not normally see in Q&A. And that's how we try to like show you if you, not only is there possible conflicts of personality types, but also chemistry too. You realize in this one thing is you actually work very well together. And this is something I would never be interested in marriage. And now I think this is a not perfect, but this is a person I want to maybe explore a little bit more after the event and maybe go to their profile, see their answers to questions and their priorities in life, because I would have never guessed this person would have very good chemistry with me in this unique activity. So, but to answer your other question regarding like one thing we always ask about, we bring up the 4 things. We all know the hadith regarding the 4 things, the beauty, this and that, and the deen is the best. Unfortunately, I think a lot of times when I talk to Muslims, they say, oh, I married this person on deen and he ended up being a terrible person, worst character, arrogant, this and that. I said, how is that deen? Like, how do you measure deen? Oh, he prayed and he fasted during Ramadan. Well, so does 70% of the Muslims, they fast during the month of Ramadan. How does that, and praying, yeah, a lot of people pray, but how do you even know? Well, he told me this and told me, okay, I think the way we measure deen sometimes are incorrect, especially for the youth, because you can't have terrible character and say he's a very religious person, because their understanding of deen is wrong, messed up at that point, right? The way you act and the way you behave and the way you treat others is a reflection of your understanding of Islam. Just if you're doing those outside things, and those things are important, like fasting, praying, those things are the bare minimum. That's not telling you, oh, you're a very religious person. No, you have to have exceptional character to be and that's the part I think people are forgetting to look at. Does this person have exceptional character? And if he does, how are you measuring that?
So
that's Deen.
I'm gonna say that that's a problem with the level of religiosity in the community in general, in that there is and it's not to deny that overtly religious characteristics and actions are necessary, at times mandatory, and are necessary for a person to be religious. But it's also to say that I could look at it the inverse. The people who are looking at people as religious, they themselves probably struggle with just the 5 pillars of Islam. So when you see somebody like, oh, they went to them, they went to the masjid for Jummah. Wow, they are so religious. So if that's your take on somebody being so religious, you might not be praying 5 times a day. I mean, I have to say that, harshly. A lot of people, the level of religious commitment is very nebulous. And they themselves don't really know what it means to be religious, except through the overt things. I want to be with somebody religious because they think that's going to be the ideal, and they don't realize that the religious person can struggle. They can have horrible character. They can, it's like the man who used to come to the Prophet ﷺ and sit with him and laugh with him and spend his time, and in the evenings he would get drunk. Now the Prophet ﷺ, told the people, don't curse him because he loves Allah and his messenger. So we're not saying that sin's okay, right? But we're also not saying that living that dualistic lifestyle is okay either. And if you're only looking at overtly religious things, then it's again, what's the core value there? Like, what actually is meaningful to you? I don't think a lot of people know, so they peg things on these overt or outward things.
And Imam, Imam Mahad, please.
That real quick, inshallah. Yeah. So I would say that, unfortunately, just as we characterize Deen for the most part, it's pretty much external, right? Does he have a beard? Does she wear a hijab? Are they praying 5 times a day? And that's kind of like, the outer shell of things that we're kind of seeing. But the Messenger of Allah, if we look at what he says, he says that I was sent only to complete or perfect good character. He also told us that one of the heaviest things on the Day of Judgment itself is good character. So when we devoid the idea of good character from Deen itself, as if like good character and being a good person is separate, that's like a separate entity, right? You can be religious, but if you're not a good person, then that's like a different situation. He's a religious person, but they're not a good person, right? Like those shouldn't be situations that are happening over there. Now, if we go to the other side of it, say you do find an individual that, mashallah, pray 5 times a day. They're someone that is good to their family. They're good to others. They have this amazing character. Even that in and of itself, if we're just defining a core value only as Deen itself, even that in and of itself isn't enough to be able to say that your marriage is secure now, right? If that was the case, then the Prophet ﷺ, the one who was the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his wives, right, who are the greatest women to live, would have never had marital disputes and challenges and conflicts, as well as the Messenger of Allah actually pronouncing divorce, right, and taking back Hafsa radiallahu anha, and according to some scholars, even going through divorce itself. So that in and of itself, just because you align in the fact that you want to please God, isn't the only element that we're looking at. And going back to the idea of a core value, this is something where, as Sheikh Joe mentioned, it might require quite a bit of sorry, we have a couple leaving from the session right now doing this, one couples, mashallah, so just giving them salams. So a core value in that realm is something that it might be discovered over time, right? For many individuals, probably in the 30s and 40s, you can probably narrow it down to some of them. If you think about one of my favorite movies, Inside Out, right? Remember how like Riley's memory bubbles, there's core memories, right? Many of those things that you hold dear and near to you you can figure that out quite quickly and be able to say, this is something that takes up a lot of my life, right? This is something that's very important to me. And it's sometimes it might not be a value, but it's something that you've treasured so much in your life that you're not willing to let go of, that is part of your lifestyle. So for example, I know some young men and women who are like, I got my degree, I've worked a little bit, I want to travel the world now. For the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, I'm not planning on settling down and having, not settling down, but I'm not planning on having kids. I want to be able to travel the world and do some of these things, right? Well, if your spouse to be is someone who's like, yeah, I've never left the US. I'm not much of a traveler. I get seasick. I get, airplane sick. I'm sick everywhere. Like, it's just not going to work for me, right? Maybe this is not the best idea, even if you align in other realms. So I think by going to even individuals that we value in our lives, right? Whether they're our mentors or our parents or our siblings or a friend, and being able to say, what do you think is, like, how would you define me? Right? And how would you describe me? And even by going to counseling sessions as well, when you're talking about yourself and your personality, you'll be able to narrow it down because either someone else is giving you their perspective of you, or you're able to do a lot of introspection with a professional who's able to help you out as well. But I think for the most part, people besides obviously DEEN, they can figure out what are those core things that are so essential to me. Yes, there might be some diehard, basketball fans or football fans. And unfortunately for some people, it might get to a level where it's like, this is a core value, but hopefully your core value is not like, going to NFL games or something else. Like there's an importance there that you give to it, but what comprises of you, what is important to you, what is essential to you. One of the exercises that we do, and we'll be doing it for the Nikah Masterclass as well. And whenever I work with young folks, young professionals, college age students, we go over what are certain things that you must have in a spouse and what are some deal breakers, right? So we write down what are 3 things that you absolutely must have in a spouse. I don't want a list of 20 things. I don't want a list of 100 things because that's overkill, right? You're looking for someone who's perfect in that sense. You're not going to find that. And even of those 5, 6 things that you're saying, for example, if they're saying, I want integrity, right? I want someone who is good to their family. Maybe first and foremost, I want someone who practices when it comes to their acts of worship, as well as how they interact with people, right? So they write these things down and we kind of flip. So if anybody's going to attend it, sorry, I kind of spoiled it for you, but we kind of flip it on their heads and we say, okay, of those qualities that you must have in a spouse, and then the qualities that you're saying, I absolutely will not accept these 3 to 5 things. Which of these things do you possess yourself? Right? Which of these things do you actually bring to the table that you are so adamant about having this in your spouse? So it's an exercise of really taking a long, hard look at oneself and what they're actually looking at. And many times through that process, they're like, well, wait a minute. I guess, yeah, okay, if the person is a certain height or a certain, from a certain background, or if they have this degree, that might be beneficial, but really these core values in terms of who this person is and what they bring to the table and who I am, those are more valuable to me than these extra things that you would say, which is, they're also important as well because the conversation is to be had. You don't want to be caught blindsided, but at the same time, being able to focus the conversation and really see, does this person meet my primary checklist? If they don't, why am I spending a month, 2, 3 months with this individual? Being able to kind of see if we have low level chemistry and able to ask all these other questions when they didn't meet that initial checklist, right? They didn't meet that initial kind of, you would say, the checklist to get to the door in terms of, I would even consider talking to this person for marriage.
So Naveed, if I could jump in on the issue of core values, because so maybe like taking Mahad's example of somebody who loves to travel or wants to travel, talking to somebody who doesn't like to travel or maybe has sickness, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not compatible, right? Because if travel is the core value, travel's a tangible thing. It's an action, right? But here the person has to ask themselves, what sort of adventure am I looking for, right? What is a fulfilling experience for me? Because some people will be fulfilling experiences for them are going to a local library and sitting down and looking through the stacks and and walking around. Other people, and that's an adventure. And other people know an adventure is ziplining in Costa Rica. So it's important to get past the superficial to actually say, okay, what's the meaning that I'm looking for here? So for example, I had people come to me with a financial dispute, the spouses. And as soon they said, well, we need help on our budget, we need help on our finances. As soon as they came to me, I knew exactly that they had like deeper issues. Because money is one of the very first symptoms that pops up. But it usually means that there is some misalignment. So, the wife was very dismayed that this highly educated man that she married did not want to do anything other than work and take expensive vacations. And her thing was, well, he's being wasteful, right? When we drill down on it, and what her mind was pegged on was, he's educated, right? It's like, I don't want to just go to the French Riviera and spend a bunch of money, or Paris and spend a bunch of money. I want to do something that's fulfilling. Okay, what does that mean? So in reality, while she thought that her core value was education, well, I married a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, so and such and such. The person, unfortunately, a lot of schools and programs are games, and as long as you know how to play the game, you can get through with flying colors. But you can still be a horrible person and be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. No offense to the lawyers here. You might not have a dedication to what's beyond education. So for her, it was actually the need to be with somebody who's committed to self-improvement, not the fact that he had a master's or a doctorate or a fellowship or whatever else, or whatever, certification. And so that's where people conflate the very outward, objectives with deeper meaning. And you always have to ask yourself, it's like the thing from with like the Six Sigma exercise, right? Toyota Six Sigma, they ask, you basically, if you want to get to the real reason behind anything, you have to ask why at least 5 times. Okay, well, I want to be with someone who is educated. Why? Because it's important for me and them to be compatible and to have the same qualifications. Why? Well, because I don't think that we're going to be able to connect if we're not able to speak to each other in the same intellectual level. Why? Well, because intellectual pursuits and the seeking of knowledge is very important to me. Why? Because I'm always trying to improve myself. That's what you want to look for. So you can find that in a person who is a madrasa graduate or is an Ivy League graduate. And sometimes you'll find it in the first much more commonly than the second. So it's less about institution, degree, and more about the meaning behind it. So thank you for allowing me to hijack that.
No, Jazakallah. And I think this really goes into the next topic I had in mind, is when I think of values, I actually think about the purpose, right? What is the purpose of marriage? And do these two individuals align on what the purpose is? And a lot of times you hear, okay, the purpose of marriage is to guard your private parts. The purpose of marriage is to have a family. And so, I'd like to get your guys' feedback and your perspective on what is the purpose of marriage, from the traditional sense, and how, that purpose can help those of us who are trying to become better Muslims, or trying to get closer to Allah, or, just live life as a normal person. What should the purpose of marriage be? And I'll leave that open to whoever wants to start, inshallah.
So I think that, again, even with like talking about like from an Islamic perspective, right? Certainly we always mention, like, from the 5 objectives of Islam is to the protection of progeny, or the protection of the family, right? The propensity of the family to continue. And we have the Prophet ﷺ saying, تزوجوا الولود الودود فإني مكاثر بكم الأمم يوم القيامة. Marry the loving, childbearing woman, because I will boast of your numbers on the day of judgment. So the superficial analysis is, oh, you need a woman who is submissive and docile and shows you love and wants to have lots of kids. You can have lots of sex and have lots of kids and still be miserable and still have bad, bad religious experience throughout all of that. Why is the Prophet ﷺ wanting to boast of us on the Day of Judgment? Because there are believers that are showing up on the Day of Judgment. There are people that are saying, I believe in Allah. I'm a follower of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I hold these things to be near and dear. They won't be the people that on the Day of Judgment are dragged off by the angels from the Prophet's fount, from his hawd. And the Prophet ﷺ will say, my followers. And the angels will say, La tadri ma ahdathu min ba'dak. You don't know the things that they concocted after you had left them. That's not what the Prophet wants. He wants people that are dedicated followers to the values of the Islamic faith. So, yes, it's important to have kids. Yes, it's important to be loving, right? But those are all objectives that pour into greater objectives of وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً, that Allah has placed between them love and mercy. هو الذي خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة. That's a verse that anytime I am asked to speak at a wedding, I always mention. And it's three core objectives of marriage: peace, like tranquility, right? It's He who created for you spouses from amongst yourselves and placed so that you can find tranquility therein. Tranquility means that there's compatibility. When there's compatibility, then you need mawadda, love, and you need rahma, you need mercy. You need love for the things that are enticing. You need mercy for the things that are not, which means that not everything's going to be perfect all the time, right? وَإِن كَرِهْتُمُوهُنَّ فَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. Allah says, and perhaps if you dislike something about your spouse, you may dislike something, and Allah puts a great amount of good in that thing. Now, traditional tafsirs will say, maybe you'll get a child that you're favorable of, right? But if we look back to this core value talk, right, then you might dislike the fact that your wife is extremely frugal, right, and almost seems like, or that your husband seems like he's tight-fisted and doesn't want to spend. You might dislike that, but that actually might be an anchor in your relationship from financial ruin. So one thing that I teach people is that your character is not necessarily bad. It's how you instrumentalize that character that makes it bad. So anger, for example, everyone says, oh, he's so angry. Angry is not a bad thing. Being angry is not bad. It's what are you angry for and what are you angry at? That's the bad thing. But you should be angered for the sake of Allah. You should be happy for the sake of Allah, right? You should give for the sake of Allah. You should hold back for the sake of Allah. And whoever does those four things, then the Prophet ﷺ had promised Jannah for them, right? So it's about what are these emotions and values being acted on for, and what are they being directed to?
And Imam Mahad, before I ask you about the purpose of marriage, just Baba Ali, really quickly, when people sign up for your website, for example, what are they looking for? Like, are they just looking that, okay, this is something I have to do? Like, what is their purpose in looking for marriage or looking for a partner?
That's a good question, because when I talk to people on my Clubhouse or I talk to people offline, like that's where I usually get the conversation, not when they're signing up, because I can't have a conversation with them. And what's interesting is each gender assumes the opposite gender is thinking the same way as they do. The majority of sisters will say, hey, the reason why men want to get married is because they want to start a family. So that they think there's like this strong instinct that men are getting together, bro, I need to have children right now. I need to start anything. But realistically, that is not the driving force of that men need to get married. I need to have children right immediately. Some men want to start a family soon. But a lot of men are looking to get their instincts satisfied, but they're not going to say it that way because it looks bad, right? And a lot of women naturally want to start a family, right? Women are not going to go around and say, oh, I need my instincts satisfied. That's not how most women operate or think way, right? So even though, again, women have desires as well. But the driving push, the driving force that's pushing that's the question. And the reason why we just think like what the opposite gender is thinking, and there seems to be some confusion on both sides, right? So men think, oh, women have this strong desire just like me. She needs to get married for this, and et cetera, et cetera. And they don't talk about it. Men don't communicate it. And we just kind of keep this stuff kind of quiet. And then when you do get married, you realize that you kind of like, your thinking is a bit different from each other. And that's just one side of it. There's so many different things that each side is looking for that we don't communicate. And we're going back on one thing we discussed earlier. I just want to make sure we touch about this real quick. I always tell people, if you're looking to get married, find someone you're attracted to. And that's pretty simple, right? But if you want to stay married, find someone you can tolerate. Now, the question is, how do you find out someone you can tolerate? So what I do is one of the activities that we do, and we do this on the website, and we do it at our live events. We ask a series we give you a lot of really, really negative traits. And the first thing I ask them is, okay, give me which one of these that you cannot stand in a husband or in a wife. And they're very easy. They love this part of it. So here. I cannot stand a husband who's arrogant, a woman who's heartless, blah, 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 because maybe my ex was like that, or maybe I just can't imagine anyone like that. That's fine. Then I say, from the remaining words, tell me which one you can tolerate. And that's where they get stuck, like a deer in headlights. So what do you mean? See, because all the time we've always asked them, okay, what's your wish list? What do you want in a house? What spouse? What do you want? Like an Eid, right? We're giving them like as an Eid gift. Pick anything you want, and we'll find it for you. But the reality is, anyone who's helping anyone get married doesn't work that way. Every single person that's looking to get married, including ourselves, we all have flaws, but no one wants to accept those flaws. We're just looking for perfection. We're just looking for the angel that doesn't have any of these issues, but we're not marrying angels. So now my real question is, which one are you willing to tolerate? And if you tell me what you're willing to tolerate, what it's going to do is two things. One, it's going to bring you down to earth like everybody else and realize that you're not living in the clouds, wondering that why I can't find my perfect match, because there's nobody up there that's looking to get married. Everyone is here down on earth, so it brings you down to a more realistic expectation. Remember, that's the main thing, that most single people looking to get married, they have unrealistic expectations. And number two is it kind of reminds you that, hey, I have flaws, and someone has to accept my flaws too. It's not just you being able to tolerate this nonsense, but you can look at these words and say, wait, some of these are me. So somebody has to be able to accept these things. And we only know ourselves. Allah knows that we know. Maybe our parents know as well. We know our own flaws. So if it says, okay, someone who happens to be unfair or happens to be unforgiving, doesn't forgive easily or holds grudges or whatever, I can't stand a person like that. And deep down, you know, this is what you do. You haven't spoken to your friend for almost 2 years now because of some little dispute. You know this could be you, and the person you're speaking to right now says this is the main thing that she cannot stand, then you're like, this person is not going to be a good match for me because this is something I need to deal with. As Job said earlier, they said, oh, you know, each of us are going through like the type of things that you have to go to character and other things. This is something that's self-development. You know, this is something you're working on. And if you can work through this, then maybe this person could be a good match for you. But until you do, deep down, you have to say, even if she is a good match for me, I'm not a good match for her. These are some of the flaws that I carry. I need to still figure out. I haven't been able to figure out, and vice versa. So it's not just you finding someone you can tolerate. It's someone that you can find to tolerate you. So when we're going through this website or going to a matrimonial event, whatever event, you're just searching for what you want. You don't realize that someone has to pick you too. And those two makes it connection, because there's a lot of people that may be great for you, but you may not be great for them. It's just something to keep in mind, inshallah.
Imam Mahad, so, you know, your commentary, inshallah, on the purpose of marriage, you know, we talked about peace and mawadda and bringing that tranquility. I'd love to hear from you.
Sure. Bismillah. So actually that verse is what we present right in the beginning of our Strong Couples, that premarital training program. That is the verse that we centered around, because to get a little bit nerdy with the Arabic, litaskunu ilayha, right? Lam of ta'lil, it's literally that lam is telling you one of the core reasons, one of the wisdoms behind this relationship. And actually, even if I could back up a little bit more, Allah starts the verse by saying, wa min ayatihi, right? And from his miraculous signs, Allah calls the sun and the moon ayat, right? Miraculous signs, right? He calls the fact that we're made in different colors and backgrounds and different languages and spread across this earth, which is, surprisingly, it's the very next ayah after this, by the way. So kind of give you an idea of interracial marriage is a little bit of kind of, subtle kind of interesting kind of way that we have been made to be able to get to know one another, to be able to understand one another. But he says from his miraculous signs is that he created spouses for you from amongst yourself. Now, typically, like for an English listener, when you hear that, it sounds like a lot of prepositions. It's like, what's going on? It's like, what do you mean for you from amongst yourself? Like, are you just saying prepositions? Like, I don't understand what's going on at this point. But this verbiage is actually used quite a bit in reference to the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was for you from amongst yourself, subhanAllah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The idea of someone, the scholars say that the idea of someone being from someone, it's not just the idea that you grew up in the same neighborhood, right? It's not the same idea that you grew up in the same place, but when you are from someone and for someone, you have, just as you want success for yourself, you want success for that other person. Just as you have these goals and dreams and aspirations for yourself, you want that for the other person. Just the same way you don't want any financial harm, any physical harm, any emotional harm to come to you, you don't want that to come to this person as well. So then the beauty is that Allah transitions from that concept to لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, so that you can find, and second, you have the idea of second and sakina over here, right? The root letters of litaskunu, that you're going to reside in tranquility, right? Is that guaranteed? Well, Allah actually already tells us, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. An intense love is required, and wood is the type of love where you want good for the other person, going back to the even previous concept that we talked about. Now, okay, love makes sense, right? Kindness, goodness towards the other, but this is a lot of times where this kind of gets left out, this portion, وَرَحْمَةً, and mercy, compassion, kindness, forgiveness, right? These are all ideas encompassed in the idea of rahmah itself. Now, when do you need mercy, compassion, forgiveness? When do you need these things? Typically not when things are going well, but things when they start falling apart a little bit, right? You need that compassion to be able to say that what I said about my spouse or to my spouse, my actions, they were inappropriate, they were incorrect, I hurt my spouse's feelings, I need to be able to go ask for forgiveness. That's part of that rahmah that Allah is talking about. As well as that rahmah, that mercy, the compassion has to be there when the one who feels like they were wronged, the one who had to hear those painful words, when they're now being presented with an apology, to be able to forgive that individual. So I feel like that ayah in and of itself is so holistic, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't paint it as, hashtag couple goals, your relationship is a divine miracle of God. Good luck, guys. It's like, no. It is absolutely a miracle of God. It's absolutely a miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he put you together. But now for you to work on this relationship, to strive for that sakina, to strive for that tranquility, it's going to require that love and also that mercy, that back and forth. And we can count so many examples, and I promise, I think it stopped happening now just because I've gone and done so many khutbahs around in the community. But whenever I would go and talk about the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam having challenges in his relationship, or as his wives said, maybe he would not speak to him for half a day, uncles would come up to me vehemently and be like, how dare you say this about the Messenger of Allah? And I'd be like, uncle, I didn't make this up. Like, this is not me just like coming up and like, trying to like TMZ this, right? This is the Messenger of Allah. These are reported in Bukhari. These are reported in our books of tafsir and Muslim. These are there. And the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us a messenger that had ups and downs in his own personal relationships, even though he was so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a role model for us in that. That doesn't take away from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or the Sahaba in the least bit. If anything, it shows us that as human beings, we are going to have ups and downs regardless. Allah told you in the Quran, and through the example of the Messenger of Allah, it was there. So the purpose of it, as Allah points out, the main purpose of it is so you can find that tranquility, that happiness in the relationship. But how do you maintain that? You have to work on it. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was in a stressful situation, there were multiple incidents, not to get too lengthy with this, but there were times when he sallallahu alaihi wasallam accepted others coming to him to speak to him about his relationship, to the point where literally the entire city of Medina, they thought the Messenger of Allah had divorced every single one of his wives, right? And when Umar radiallahu anhu speaks to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asks Ya Rasulullah, the very first question he asks is, Ya Rasulullah, did you divorce all your wives? And he says, no. He goes back to the community, says, Allahu Akbar, we're good to go, guys. Everybody go back home. Everybody was already gathered in the masjid. They were crying and weeping and saying, what's going on, right? But the Messenger of Allah had a difficult moment in his relationship. And he came, and Umar radiallahu anhu, his father-in-law, his student, his friend, Umar radiallahu anhu was having this conversation. There were other times when he sallallahu alaihi wasallam sought out advice of others. He also brought in mediators. When him and Aisha radiallahu anha couldn't figure out a certain challenge in the relationship and they wanted to get a mediator, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gives a proposal of a certain sahabi who can mediate. And Aisha radiallahu anha says, no, he loves you too much. We have to go with somebody else. And then he proposes, well, what about Abu Bakr, your father? Right? It was kind of a lose-lose situation because I don't think you'll find anybody in that circumstance. But the fact that they brought in other individuals. So to see that part of our deen is not just kind of preparing for the relationship. That should definitely be there. We should be proactive as possible, get as much information as possible, take premarital education, learn about the other person. But also when times of challenges come up, part of our deen is not a weakness of our iman to seek out betterment for ourselves or for our relationships. If anything, you would say it's part of our iman, right? In Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if you fear a rift between the couple from both of these individuals, appoint unbiased mediators. So instead of, uncles and aunties, mashallah, may Allah bless them, classically, you'll get the response, you're having trouble with this, you're not having kids, read more Quran. Definitely it'll add barakah to your life. But also implement what the Quran is saying. The Quran is saying to find those unbiased mediators, to look at the example of the Messenger of Allah. He received revelation, but yet he was still okay with going and seeking out betterment for his relationship. SubhanAllah. That's just, it's mind-boggling.
Alhamdulilah, subhanAllah, jazakallah khair. When I think about the divorce rate, I tend to blame modernity, postmodern thought. We have these issues of individualism. I know Baba Ali and I were talking about an article. You kind of see, this decay of gender roles and the decay of, what a man is and what a woman is. And so, I want to comment. I would love to hear what you have to say about that. But at the same time, I think that me especially, I tend to over-rotate and blame modernity for marriage issues, but at the same time, a lot of these issues did occur, from the time of the Prophet ﷺ until now. So I guess maybe the first bomb, I'd like to drop is maybe.
You're back. All right.
Yeah, sorry about that. No, my power just went out, subhanAllah. So that caused a problem. But what I was talking about is. The question that I left off with, and can everybody hear me, inshallah?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and the question that I left off with is, the postmodern problems that we have are these modern problems that we have of individualism and the breakdown of gender roles and things like that, and how much of these modern problems are really causing the increase in divorces. So I think, Baba and Ali and I were talking about this article that he shared with me about toxic individualism, right? And maybe Baba Ali, you can start with that and, comment on the impact of individualism and these issues on our marriages and, to the increase of the divorces in our community.
Yes, this is constant theme of like, how can I benefit? How can I get something out of you? And everyone is looking to see how I can benefit from you. What can I get out of you? No one's looking to benefit others. Well, the Prophet ﷺ, by the way, there's nothing in Islam of this hyper-individualism. There's no hadith, there's no ayah that promotes this thing. This is a complete Western mentality, Western thought that we are drinking like it's the best Kool-Aid in the world, and all it's doing is keeping us single. No one wants to marry a selfish person who's self-centered, thinking about themselves. It's not attractive for either males or females. Yet so many people carry this mentality. And when they come across this way, they come across the way that when you're in the courtship phase, this is what I'm looking for. I want this, I want this, I want this, and you better do this, and I'm looking for this. I'm looking for a husband or a wife that does this, this, and this for me. While the whole time you've been talking for 45 minutes, what are you going to be as a husband? What do you bring to the table as a wife? And when I ask this question, after someone's finished talking for like 20 minutes about their entire list, honestly, most of the time they're like this. I never really thought about it. What do you mean I haven't really thought about it? You were the person looking to get married. What are you bringing? You're going to a negotiation table in a business meeting, and I'm like, oh, well, I want to buy this. What are you going to offer? Like, well, I don't know what I would do in this business. Well, we're a partnership. Why would I need you? And if you can't answer the question why I would need you or what value you would bring in a marriage, that's the first problem right there, because you haven't really thought about it. It's all about hyper individualism. It's all about me, me, me. What can I get? And when you come in with this mentality, and now unfortunately married people are starting to become individualism too. And believe it or not, a lot of the therapists are pushing this on you. As soon as someone gets divorced, what's the first thing the therapist will tell you? You need to start focusing on yourself. You need to put yourself first. Where in Islam does it say you put yourself before your children, before your wife? We do the exact opposite. A man is told in Islam to put your family first. You share your money with your family. Not, okay, you have your own account, take care of yourself, make sure your stomach is fed first before you take care of your family. This is the exact opposite of what Islam teaches. So when we do the exact opposite of what Islam teaches, we're not going to have the Islamic success that Islam teaches us that we can get if we follow Islam. So this is the craziness, and people are like wondering, what's going on? Why are we having so many problems? Well, what happens when you go opposite direction of Islam? This is the situation we're in right now. So I think myself is, until we change, the article was talking about how more of the we has become me. The wife is thinking about herself, the husband's thinking about himself, and we're in that problem right now. And I don't see any solution in the near future until we change that mentality.
Well, I think a lot of it goes into, again, what we're talking about is like the not only the core value talk, which is a very Western therapeutic paradigm, right? The maqasid objective talk, which is kind of inherent to Islamic discourse. But I do believe there's like a dissonance between the way that people think they're supposed to think and what they think Islam is. And a big problem of this is, and I was speaking to a brother who used to be an imam at a major masjid here in the United States, and we were talking about these issues, and I said, you know what? I blame the popular speakers who only speak to the community in platitudes that are so broad as to be meaningless or harmful. And he is like, give me an example. Your money is my money and my money is my money.
Yeah.
This idea, Naveed, I think you did a video about that, right?
Yeah.
It was an excellent video. This idea has become so ingrained in people's minds that they actually think like this is an Islamic teaching. No, I remember a brother I know was a marital mediator in like the Northeast area, New England. And he said they got to the woman's insistent on a divorce, insistent. And okay, what do you want if there's a divorce? Well, I want full custody of the kids, and I want alimony, and I want child support, and I want the house, and I want the car, and I want half of his 401k, and I want the bank accounts divided up, and I want XYZ. And she goes through this laundry list, and he says to her, okay, so I'm trying to understand why you believe you're owed all of that, because most of that's not yours. And she goes, Islam, duh. He said he was so taken aback at the attitude. And so this hyper individualized attitude, it plays into the capitalistic attitude of commodification. So everything is being commodified and disconnected from the whole, to the point that as long as I can, like, it reminds me of, there's a punk band called the Sex Pistols. Please don't get upset at the name of the band, right? But they have a song about anarchy, and one of the lines in there says, I don't know what I want, but I know how to get it. And so when people are hyper individualistic, they commodify everything down to its base axioms, its base components. And then they're like, okay, that's what I want. And that's the only thing that I want. And it doesn't matter if I destroy people's lives or I even destroy my life in doing so. And I I would say that there is something in Islam about focusing on oneself. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. Save yourselves and your family from the hellfire. If you're not a person who is focused on saving yourself from the hellfire, it's not going to happen for your family as well, you know, unless except by, you know, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's what are the values that people are focused on? But when you've commodified everything down to it's, you know, down to the base desires, you naturally end up with people that are very willing to destroy the lives of others in order to get that 5 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever it is, of pleasure. And that's why you have, you know, and again, excuse the phrase, I can't say this in a khutbah, but it needs to be said. Okay, there is a proliferation of pimp and hoe culture in the Muslim community that has come to us from broader culture. And this is something that is promoted through popular music and movies and television shows. And it might not be directly in that very vile, you know, sense of trafficking women for sex. Okay. But if you look at who's considered to be the guy who, you know, has it all together, you know, he's a pimp, he's a don, he's a mac. These are all words that are extremely derogatory in their base usage. Okay, you have women that sing about being a bitch, as if that's something good. And this is not to focus only on that, but it's to say that that is symptomatic of the individualism, hyper individualism, and the commodification of even the human self. So it's no wonder when we have, you know, when we have young women who are literally emulating and imitating the actions of strippers in the way that they dress, and they don't realize it, in the shoes that they wear, in the fake lashes, the acrylic nails. Even women that are religious, you know, do this stuff. And I'm not saying that they are bad people or that they are doing that because of that. They're doing it because they're following the general trend of commodifying themselves because they think they need to be a commodity in order to be liked and accepted and gain attention. And it's no wonder that we have young men who idolize people like Andrew Tate, who's a human trafficker and a generally all-around vile person, when culture in general sees the man who can get over on women and exploit them as being something which is praiseworthy, right? So, you know, in the end of the day, the question we have to ask ourselves is, when we speak of our values, or we speak of what we want, again, where is that coming from, right? Is the demand to commodify ourselves and that we be looked at as a commodity, you know, and is that playing into the individual dynamic of peace, love, tranquility, furthering the idea of family, right? This idea of there being a sacred idea of family in Islam needs to be focused on more. A lot of Christian family theologians have talked about this in detail. We need more Muslims to talk about it. And then, if we're talking about the individual relationship, what is the family's relationship with the ummah, with, you know, the attribution to the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then as in Islam in general. So, you know, I really do believe that a lot of people have a misconnect in that what they think is Islam is actually Jahiliyyah. And I'm sorry?
No, I was just seeking refuge from Allah.
Yeah, I mean, may Allah save us and save our spouses and our children and our parents. But it's a it's an idea that unless you have commodified yourself, you are not of value. And unless you have separated yourself from the whole, you are meaningless in life. When in reality, every single thing that we do connects us to a greater whole, right? So what whole do you want to be connected to? Do you want to be connected to the godless, genderless, faithless, propertyless, emotionless whole that, you know, broader society is calling you to? Or do you want to be part of the whole that is faithful, godful, worshipful, emotional in the positive sense, congregational, right? That's seeking to maximize benefit and minimize harm. Look at all these other things, back to that maqasid talk. And all of these other things on this side, maximize harm, minimize benefit under the auspices of individual choice. And so everything in this philosophical paradigm goes back to the idea that the only reality is change, and you can only have change through personal choice. Therefore, we have to always force whatever our base desires are. So it's quite nefarious and quite evil to think about it, because it doesn't take into consideration that when I say, oh, the Muslim community is so focused on community that they deny their individual rights, they deny their individual desires. Everybody does that. Everyone does that. The question is, are you connected to a group that promotes individual desires that are beneficial for you, or are you connected to something which promote that the individual desires work against you? This is why the companions of the Prophet, when he was telling them the different types of sadaqah, right? Amrun bil ma'ruf sadaqah wa nahyun 'anil munkari sadaqah walhamdulillah sadaqah. You know, alhamdulillah, subhanallah, ordering the good, forbidding the evil. These are all types of sadaqah. Wa fi bud'i ahadikum sadaqah, right? And in the privates of one of you is a sadaqah. How can one utilize their private parts and have it be a charity? أرأيت لو جعله في حرام ألم يكن عليه وزر أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Don't you see that if the person would have used it for haram, they would have used their private parts for haram, they would have had a sin, they would have been sinful? Yes. So, well, in the same way, if they place it in halal, then it will be a reward for them, right? So I think I'll stop my diatribe now. I think the problem with the hyper individualism is that people, and this is a problem with Muslims in the community, right? We have been conditioned to think badly about ourselves, and badly about our values, and badly about our faith. I was thinking about this like two Jum'ahs ago. I was at Jum'ah, and it was an older uncle type that was giving the khutbah. And I said to myself, you know, this guy is like speaking really profound ideas that most people can't get past the topi and the accent to be able to benefit from. And they would look at this as, they would look at him as being, you know, backward. And they would characterize his khutbah as, anyone talks about these guys, they just talk about fire and brimstone. When in fact, he talked about nothing about that. But I'm just saying the typical, like my mind started going to like, what is the typical attitude that people have? It's because I came to Jumu'ah, I didn't get exactly what I wanted. That person must be telling me that I'm going to hell. No, you just think of yourself as a designant of the hellfire. You automatically have assumed that you're a bad person. And going back to our marriage talk, if I'm a bad person, then I'm one of two things is going to happen. Well, if I'm a bad person, then this person has to deal with me, and they have to accept me who I am, right? Or I'm a bad person, I'll never find anyone. I'm not worthy, and it doesn't matter how many Baba Adis Allah puts in the creation, right? And how many events He has. I'm never going to find anyone because I'm bad. Nobody would accept me. And it all goes back to this idea of self-worth. And it's because our self-worth has become attached to materialism, not attached to Allah.
SubhanAllah.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I will stop.
No, jazakallah khair. I mean, SubhanAllah, that's exactly what I needed to hear. And I think most of us need to hear is, the problem of, individualism, but, also kind of coupled with that is this kind of decline of gender roles, and it's almost like a swear word, right? Like as soon as you say gender roles, people tune out. They think you're misogynist or whatever they think. But I personally believe that the demise of gender roles is actually a contributing factor to the demise of marriages, because why would you get married if you're exactly the same? What are you offering each other? So I don't know if any of you have any comments on what should gender roles be? Is that really a concern? Are we being too old school by using that as an issue?
Here's one thing I think we don't think about very much, as I said earlier regarding what the opposite gender is thinking, right? The most 99% of marriages are initiated by men, right? So if we're complaining about why are there not enough marriages, why there's so many single people, the real question is, why aren't the men initiating marriages? Well, you have to look at it through the male's perspective. If I'm going to marry somebody, and the majority of divorces, 70% or more, are initiated by women, and my wife is going to more likely decide when this relationship is going to be over, and that it is usually the control of the wife who decides, okay, this relationship isn't working, I want a divorce, et cetera, et cetera. When she decides that, not only do I lose half my wealth, if not in some cases more, I will lose my children almost definitely, full custody, gone. And that is a bigger fear for men than it is for the money wise, because money can come and go, but your children are priceless. And if you think that's a possibility, men when they see their friends lose their situation, I mean, they see their friends go through this, it scares them. So there are many men that may be thinking about marriage, and then they're watching their friend lose everything, and somebody else losing their children, and somebody else doing this. And already men were already hesitant to commit and to get married and stuff like that. And now he's going to say, okay, hold on, let me just take my time. Let me really think about it. And on the flip side of it, you're dealing with people who have many ideas, as we just talked about a minute ago, hyper-individualism, both male and female. You have a whole feminism stuff, and everyone has a little bit of it. You have all these different ideas that are outside of the scope of Islam, and people are carrying this, making them more unattractive. And then we have this huge issue of people just not getting married. And the more divorces that are happening even discourages you even more, because, hey, we literally seeing everybody getting divorced. Like the majority of your friends, think about it, everyone who's listening right now, are the majority of your friends people who are likely to be divorced? Or the majority of your friends are people who have very successful marriages, long-lasting marriages? And the majority of us will say, I know more people that are divorced than having long-lasting relationships, at least from this generation, the last 15 years of people, right? So the people who got married in the last 10, 15 years. So the question is, a lot of people who are now just entering the world of getting married, you think they're rushing towards marriage? Or like, oh, hold on. Because for a guy who does matrimonial events, I can almost tell you this for sure. Getting sisters to come to these matrimonial events is very easy. Getting quality brothers looking to get married, marriage-minded brothers, is the true challenge. And that is the thing that no one really talks about. Where are the brothers? I had an event just a few months ago, and the event sold out. Again, alhamdulillah, we were able to attract the men, right? But the event sold out, and then we had a waiting list. Of the waiting list, brothers, I'll ask you guys this question. I had 80 people on my waiting list at one point. So it says, hey, if anyone cancels, just let me know so I can get into your event, right? Of the waiting list of the 80 people on the waiting list, how many do you guys think were men and how many were women? You guys want to throw a number out?
I know it's more than half for sure going to be women.
More than half women. Okay, and anybody else want to throw a number out?
60-20.
60%, 40%?
No, not percent. Out of the 80, 60 women, 20.
Okay,
men.
around 80% men, 20%. Okay. Okay, Joe, do you want to throw a number out real quick? I'll say what the answer, what I reveal the answer.
I'm gonna go like, I'm gonna say that the women were probably 3 to 4 times more than the men.
Okay. It was 80 sisters and 0 brothers.
Wow. I was not expecting that answer.
0. I was shocked myself. For a guy who's done about 40 of these events, 0. I mean, now we're the lowest, we just finding a good brother is hard to find. Finding a good marriage, most of us are here, we're brothers, right? How many do you, most of us say, how many brothers do you know that are good quality brothers look to get married? We could probably count on one hand. That you say have exceptional character, have everything in line, ready to get married, they have everything. Most of us can count only about a few people on one hand. And these are, most of us know a lot of people. That's a really bad scenario. And if you ask a sister, ask the average sister, how many good sisters do you know looking for marriage? Most of them count with 2 hands plus more, right? So this is the question, like, what is going on here? Where are the brothers? And why are they no longer interested? And what is going on? And for non-Muslims, by the way, since we copy non-Muslims on so many different things, we've been talking about that today. For non-Muslims, in the last 80 years of keeping the records of how many people are married, of the adults that are in households are married, we're at the lowest number ever recorded in US history. So they've only kept the record for the last 80 years, started 80 years ago. We're at the lowest record. That means people are no longer getting married. And since we Muslims are copying what non-Muslims are doing, they're delaying marriage or not even getting married. And that just because you're not getting married doesn't mean you're doing things the right way. You could be leading to fitna. And we have so many different issues. And I mentioned this early on when I did my intro, that 20%, I came across a brother at my last event who approached me and said, Ali, I came to your event. Is there anything else I can do? I said, well, I don't know. How are the online apps working out for you? I mean, I would try as many different ones as I can within the halal boundaries. He said, bro, I go to his apps on Muslim ones only, and I see sisters, about 20% of them are just using it to hook up. This was unheard of before. I would hear it from brothers' side, but not from this. I would never hear it from like sisters using it for that reason. And again, they're not getting married either. And now they have urges as well. They want to feel loved. They want this, and they use this for these tools for the wrong thing. It's all these other issues that we don't really bring to the surface, because the only people that know about like really what's going on are divorce attorneys like yourself and marriage therapists. And sometimes the imam knows. But generally, it's not like common knowledge of what's going on. We have no idea how much infidelity is happening within practicing Muslims until you go to a marriage therapist and you start out, oh my gosh, you have no idea. They really know the numbers, right? Because they get a glimpse of it because they're interacting. But the average person is going to, you have no idea the person you're praying next to is sleeping with somebody else and this, you don't know what's going on. So we can't really talk about these issues because we don't know there's an issue. But if we knew like the issue about, we talk about pornography for men, do you know how much there's pornography for women? Do we know what's really going on? If we don't know what to tackle, if we know the issues, how are we going to tackle it? So going back to this marriage issue about this, there's so many different things that we don't realize that we're our own worst enemies. I'll give you guys one example. We talk about, for example, we're here helping single people look to get married, and many of those people happen to be divorcees, right? As a divorce attorney yourself, you're dealing with just people who are going to be as part of that pool, right? So all these people who are divorced, how are they looking to get married, and how are the people who are enabling them, like myself, helping these people get married? I'll give you one example how we're not helping them. Every single matrimonial, go check it out when you're done with this video. Go check this and check this and check. Every one of them basically gives you the option to filter people. They ask everyone, are you divorced or single? Then they give you the option to filter all of them out. So even though you're paying for a swiping app, you're invisible. No one ever sees you. Like, they'll take your money. If you want to be a 55-year-old person, 55-year-old sister on a matrimonial app, how many people are searching for 55-year-old sister for a matrimonial app? We don't really think about it, but nobody is. Even the 55-year-old guy is not looking for a 55-year-old sister for matrimonial app, but yet the matrimonial app will take your money without hesitation. So when they give you the tool of, hey, can you guys tell us if you're single or divorced? Why do you need to know that? Just give us information. You give information, and now you add that as a filter and click only single people who've never been divorced before. And then people do that as an option. If you can have an option of all the people who've never failed at a business or been in a situation where the business has failed, why would you not partner up? Why would you partner up with any of those people when you can partner up with people who've only had successful businesses or had no experience in businesses? It's the same idea. And unfortunately, we are feeding into the same thing that's dividing us. And it takes a lot to go against the grain. It takes a lot to swim against the wave. And I lost a lot of people. I lost a lot of people because I removed the option of searching for people by divorce. I said, when we all walking around, I see you and I see Joe and I see yourself. I see all the different people here. No one's wearing a t-shirt that says I'm divorced. No one says all these different things you went through. And I compare it to being in a car accident. You were sitting at a red light and a car hits you. You are now officially in a car accident. It wasn't my fault. You were in a car accident. It doesn't matter your fault. Were you in an accident? Yes, I was. Some people in their marriage, they married the wrong person. They got hit the wrong way, and now they're stained with divorce. Because yes, that couple that got divorced, they're both divorced, but doesn't necessarily mean that that person was at fault. Just like you were sitting at a red light, it wasn't your fault. But now you will carry that stain for the rest of your life in the Muslim community. And why am I going to enable this nonsense way? At the same time, come on podcasts, talk about, oh, brothers and sisters, we should not look at this stuff, and then hold a website that enables this stuff. So I removed it, and I lost a lot of people that said, hey, I need to be able to search by single. And I said, we don't do that in the real world, so just leave. And they left. So we have to be able to be strong enough to not just talk about these things, but actually do it and push it, even if it means we lose wealth, even if it means lose status, lose this, because until we do that, we're not going to change. We're just going to talk about change. You know, and this is all the topics we're talking about today, and every listener that's listening about this hyper-individualism and all these other things. If you really want to change the path that you're going down right now, you have to be part of that change. You can't just sit there and talk about it. You have to be realistic on what I'm looking for. You have to go, and when you're talking to somebody, don't just talk about all the stuff you want in a spouse. Talk about, for example, what you will provide. That's what I did, by the way. I stood out, alhamdulillah, from all these people. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a good family situation. I'm a convert. I'm still new to Islam. I stood out. Why? Because I was one of the few profiles on a website, not on my own. I joined all these other websites that said, hey, this is what it would be like if you married me as your husband. And people are, wow, for the first profile ever. And by the way, today you don't even see that. Instead of saying, I want this, I want this, I want this. What are you going to provide? That's what I did. Such a simple thing, but nobody was doing it back then. And still 99% of people are not doing it now. Imagine brothers that right now who are looking to get married, and sister will say, this is what I'm looking for all these things I'm looking for in a husband. But also, if you marry me as a wife, this is what you'll get as a wife. How much more attractive is that? And flip the script for a second. Sisters, the brother's listening all the stuff he wants in a wife, and she should be like this and this and this and this. But if you marry me, these are all the things you'll get by being my wife. Doesn't that sound so much more attractive? And so this has come back to Islam, as I said. It takes away from the hyper-individualism we were talking about just a minute ago, but it goes back to Islam. The best of you is to those who are beneficial to others. The best of you is who's best to his family. The best of you is who's most, all of these things to be beneficial, to be good to others, to take care of others. That's what makes people attractive. All this me is not making you whatsoever attractive. And if you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of people who think the same way and giving you this bad advice, notice that all of them are in the same boat as you. Because nothing keeps single Muslims single more than single Muslims. Seriously, they're giving you bad advice. I always tell people, why are you getting advice from a person who hasn't been successful, whatever they did? It doesn't mean it's their fault. But if you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of people who are like that, why not go get advice from a person who has been doing his business for 20 years and been very successful? And has a lot of, through the recession, through the bad, this and that, all the good and the bad, they still lasted. That's the person I would get my advice from, right? Successful people. You're gonna go get it from Elon Musk, you're gonna get it from Tim Cooks or whatever, all these different people. How'd you build your empire so big? That's the person you get advice from. You know, that's the guy who bankrupt 3 times.
Exactly. And that's, social media too, right? Social media is kind of helping exacerbate that issue where, like you're saying, the friends that you have, who are you getting your advice from? It's usually the people on social media, the life that you're looking at. I think that's another quote unquote modern problem that we see is that, you're overexposed to the lives of other people and other people celebrating taking off their hijab or, the modern day, kind of saying I slept with these many people, or I did this or I did that. And it's almost becoming attractive more attractive than that peaceful married life, you know? So,
But
you know,
that social media is something that we haven't touched yet, but that's a huge thing. As you said, many people don't have the connections, and this is our connection right here. And this is what I see, right? These are my friends. This is my advice. These are the quotes I'm getting. I'm getting from this guy, seeing from this person. These are the people I follow. And that's what friends are. These people you follow, these are the people you connect with. And if these are the people that you're getting advice from and they're giving you bad advice, how many married people right now are on the verge of divorce because they are not necessarily just unhappy with their spouse, but they think they can do better? Because I see better when I look at here. I see, guess what? Hey, how many times has this have happened for all those married brothers and sisters out there? How come we're not going to eat dinner like they are? How come we're not on vacation like them? When are we going to go? I mean, conversation, we all heard of this. When are we going to go to so-and-so Bahamas? When are we going to do this? And so what are you talking about? Every single day you're going through this and you're seeing what people are eating, where people are going, and and their life is so happy. And then you compare them to you. And you think to yourself, something's wrong with our marriage. We're not happy, but you don't realize this is all an illusion. That's not real. Those same people who are just taking pictures, you think that guy's enjoying his dinner and she's enjoying, they could be fighting for all we know. They're just putting this show on for you. So you can get your views and your likes and all the stuff, social media currency that they value themselves for. But in the real world, it doesn't work that way. You don't sit there and show off all the stuff about what you're doing, if you're so much enjoying it, you'll be too busy enjoying it. Most people are not even enjoying what they're posting. They're too busy trying to keep their viewers happy. You think people are watching? I know, I've been so many comedy shows I've had, and people are just doing this. They're holding their phones out at my comedy show, and I'm like, how are you enjoying this? You're just being a filmmaker, like a director. Sit down, put your phone away, enjoy the show that you paid for. They don't. Everyone thinks that's the word fireworks. How many times do people sit there and filming fireworks? Who's watching fireworks from 2015? Nobody. Nobody. But yet they're filming. All the people are filming fireworks. Nobody watches fireworks from 5 years ago. I want to you enjoy the moment. You don't remember it because you're doing this the whole time. Ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Sorry.
No, of course. And you know, I guess the other question, you know, that I had was, you know, I blame a lot, and we blame a lot of the modern problems that we face, but, you know, how can we differentiate between, you know, problems that everybody's had since beginning of time versus those problems that we're facing in modernity? You know, maybe Imam Mahad, if you can comment on that, because I think a lot of people are hopeless, right? And they want to kind of rid themselves of everything and go hide in a hole, but I don't think that's the answer either.
That's a great point, mashallah. I would say that divorce is not a, is the audio coming okay?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. I think you might have it set to not speaker view. I'm just seeing the green box around your thing. You might want to just check that, Naveed. Okay, bismillah. So divorce isn't a new phenomenon at all. We were talking about, as the audio was out for a bit, we were talking about how even in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, in the time of the Sahaba, divorce was a regular natural phenomena happening, right? There were times where, regardless of how great these individuals are and how Allah applauds them and says Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they still had ups and downs. They had miscommunications. They had issues when it came to finances. They had issues when it came to intimacy. They had all these challenges that were there. But the main difference, I think, especially just talking about the discussion we were having about individualism and divorce, the main thing that you saw in that community, which I would say is very different from our community today, is that the ability to get remarried in that time was much simpler, right? Like you would have individuals who were widows or divorcees with multiple children get remarried. I think, Naveed, you're gonna, sorry, I'm just gonna have to, you see how there's a green box around your thing for the recording purpose? When that green box is around, like what'll happen is that it'll just be that green box the entire time any one of us is speaking. So you'll have to change it to unpin or go to spotlight mode. And when you do that, it'll then be able to go to whoever's speaking. I just noticed that right now. If you click on, what do you have to click? I'm forgetting right now.
So I have it right now I see all of you. I see all three of you on my screen.
There's a green little outline on your image if you see that. So as soon as you take your video off, like regardless of who's speaking, the camera is not shifting towards that person. It's staying on you right now.
For me, I'm seeing the green on you when you speak on it.
Yeah, me too. I'm seeing the green move as people are talking.
Oh,
I do too.
That's strange. For some reason, it's on Naveed the entire time. So it's, I don't know, maybe my settings off. My apologies, guys. So just getting back to the train of thought, Bismillah, something about marriage and divorce, right? I'm sure we were talking about that.
Yes, yes. The divorce has been a part of eternity, and what is new today versus what's what we've been dealing with from the beginning of time.
Yeah. So the idea of being able to get remarried at the time of the Messenger of Allah sallam, was much more common than we have today. There's obviously a stigma around if someone is a divorcee, someone has children, right? Male or female, as Baba Ali mentioned, people will just filter those people right out. So I really commend Half Deen for the work that they do in that, in terms of being able to provide these individuals the opportunity to really share who they are before they are just labeled and really packaged away as if they are not individuals of value. If anything, in the Sahaba, we saw, I mean, one of the most popular hadith when it comes to marriage is the Messenger of Allah speaking to Jabir ibn Abdullah, which is one of like the most beautiful interactions from the life of the Messenger of Allah, where he's asking this young man who's maybe between the ages of 17 to 19, right? He's asking him the question, you recently got married. Did you get married to a young woman, a virgin woman who has never been married before? Or did you marry someone who's possibly either been divorced or a widow? Now, you typically don't even ask that question to a 17 or an 18, 19-year-old, period. But then that secondary follow-up, is that person a virgin, or is that person someone who's been married before? And to our surprise, Jabir responds back, I married someone who has been previously married. And the hadith goes on, and it's unfortunate that many times it's only quoted to that portion, because the Messenger of Allah says, well, you should have married someone who was younger, who you could interact with and play with. But then Jabir goes on and he says, actually, it's before that narration, he said that his father had passed away and he had left behind 7 daughters, meaning his sisters, and they were all younger than him. And he's a young man, and there's a massive loan that he has to pay off on behalf of his father. So when the Messenger of Allah is asking him, and he explains to him, Ya Rasulullah, I didn't want to add on another young woman that I have to take care of and look after. I want someone who's a good woman, but at the same time, I need help over here as well. My family needs to be taken care of, and I'm looking for this person to be able to help me with that. And the Messenger of Allah says to him, Asabta ya Jabir, like you hit the target right in the bullseye, right? Nicely done, young man, right? The affirmation that he got. So going back to just divorce in general, I feel like in our society, unfortunately, those who are widowed or divorcees, or those who have children from their marriages, it's unfortunately they get blacklisted in that sense. And I think us working to, number one, talk about the value of an individual, how the Sahaba looked at this. Obviously, there's an element of polygyny as well that was part of that. But the main thing is that these people were not somehow just cast aside and taken away. Sorry, going back to the main crux of your question again, it was regarding what again, Naveed? Sorry.
Basically, what can we differentiate? Like, what are the modern problem versus the problem that we've always had as a community of people?
Yeah, great. I think I'll go back to even what you were referring to about gender roles previously as well. Islamically, we absolutely do have certain roles and responsibilities and rights for each, the husband and the wife, and obviously anybody in those in a relationship, that of a parent, that of a child. There's rights and responsibilities that are always there. And Alhamdulillah, beyond those basic rights and responsibilities, which we cover in detail in the Nikah Masterclass, as well as what we do for our premarital training as well, called Strong Couples, we detail that and we talk about that, right? And it's very basic things that it would be pretty self-explanatory. It would be basically understood by any human being. The ability to protect, to financially provide, to be good to one another. When it comes to the woman, the wife, it would be honor, respect, being the shepherd of the home. When it comes to the mutual rights, there's not having abuse to one another, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, whether it's verbal, whether it's sexual, whether it's financial, the mutual right of sexual intimacy, of kindness towards one another. Beyond those realms, in terms of how the household looks obviously we see like large shifts in society today, right? We see many more women working than before. But is that something that is unique to our circumstance? Were there not women that worked in the time of the Sahaba? And this is where you see that when you really take a look at who was there in the time of the Messenger of Allah, you had diverse households, right? They didn't look cookie cutter. Like it wasn't just that the man always works and the woman's at home, right? You had individuals where the women would work in the fields alongside their husbands, alongside the family. There would be women who would be preparing, goods and products and selling them in the markets. They were businesswomen, right? So there were individuals that had various types of households. There were households, absolutely, you would say, probably a majority of them would be where the woman would stay at home. But there were also times where, because of the financial need, the woman would also be working and doing that. So a lot of that goes back to communicating that and discussing that and arranging what does our household look like. But I feel like many times what ends up happening is, and this is something that is, I would say if I was to boil down marital challenges into two main symptoms, right? Looking at all the primary reasons for conflict, the Family Youth Institute, typically, might be shocking to many people. The number one reason for conflict in Muslim American marriages, in-laws. You couldn't even rank that in the non-Muslims anywhere, right? That's not even like, what do you mean in-laws? Like, what does that have to do with anything, right? But when it comes to Muslim American marriages, you have in-laws there, you have intimacy, you have conflict, you have finances. All these things are also there for Muslims. Infidelity will also be there as well. But the primary thing when I look at all those symptoms that we usually deal with, the core of them would be communication and compromise. Because if you're not able to communicate effectively with your spouse, right, not able to share what is important to you, not able to share how you want to distribute finances and take care of the household finances, not distribute the roles and responsibilities of the house, and now you're not able to compromise, these are two deadly things for your marriage, right? If you're not able to communicate effectively, and on top of that, if your communication is already in the trash, compromise is like not even it's wishful thinking at that point. If you can't communicate what you need at that point, I would say those are the core principles that you would find in almost the vast majority of divorces. Obviously, there'll be cases of abuse and other situations as well, but many of the relationships where the husband and wife, where they start to fall apart, that is the main thing that we see today. But at the same time, I'll also say, as we mentioned this before, those in their 60s, 70s, maybe in our grandparents' age or those with older parents, right? In their age, it was very much like ride or die situation, especially it'd be very hard for me to find a 60-year-old, 70-year-old uncle or auntie who's divorced from the Pakistani community or from different communities, from different immigrant backgrounds, that they would, they ended the relationship. You'll see it more now, as Baba Ali mentioned, those perhaps in those 40s and their 50s, been married for 15, 20, 30 years. It's more commonplace to see that. And what's more frightening, as Baba Ali mentioned, is that you see that even more now with this younger generation. I will have phone calls on a regular basis of, I've been married now for about 5 months. I've been married now for 3 months. I've been married for a month. I've been married for 2-3 weeks. I don't think this is going to work out. It's like, did you try anything yet? It's only been 2 weeks. Like, what happened? Like, what could really just occur in 2 weeks? And there are exceptional situations where people have been hiding and lying and literally catfishing at the most professional level possible at that point, where you're hiding certain things. And those are Islamic grounds for fuss, for the annulment of the relationship anyways. So, but many times let's say if we take those situations out of it, just when you're seeing that, wait a minute, there's something undesirable, unfavorable in this individual. And when we're not working through those things, when we're not working through it as our deen asks us to do, as we're told in the Quran, as we see in the example of the Messenger of Allah, just as was mentioned before, we end up shooting ourselves in the foot when we're saying we're not going to take the guidance that Allah is giving me. And this guidance is not just rewarding in taking it, but it brings more value to my life, to hopefully save this marriage, to save this relationship. And I'll finish off with one of these, the sad regular occurrences I'll get. People will call me and say, Imam, I want to get divorced from my spouse, right? And then I'll usually give them 15, 20 minutes to give me a breakdown of, tell me what the primary issue is, right? What are your challenges? Are you sure you want a divorce? Can we get you connected with a counselor? Can we get you connected with someone who can do some arbitration, some mediation, anybody? And they'll mention their entire thing. And primarily what will end up happening is, especially when I ask them the question, do you really want to get divorced, or are you hurt by your spouse right now? Are you angry at your spouse? Do you want, if it was possible, if I told you, you could spend perhaps maybe 10 sessions, maybe 2-3 months with a marriage counselor, and you could work on these things to mitigate the distress that this is costing you, and possibly even have a stronger relationship than you've ever had before, would you take that option? And surprisingly, alhamdulillah, many of these men and women will say, you know what, you're right. I am very hurt. I'm distressed. I do want to work on this relationship. And the most common call I'll get back in a day is, I talked to my spouse. They said, no, we're not doing it. Can you please direct me again to a divorce lawyer, right? And it's unfortunate because we were so adverse to the idea of someone being able to assist us in our relationship, right? Someone being able to help us in a realm that we're struggling with. We would rather let it come to a demise and say, well, I tried my best. Well, did we really try our best though? Did we really seek out what Allah and His Messenger, so I said them, have given us in terms of guidance? Or are we saying we tried internally and we just couldn't figure it out and it's time to go, right? That's not the advice that Allah and His Messenger gave us. So for us trying and making sure we take that effort, I think is a huge push we need to make in the Muslim community, inshallah.
I have a question for you guys regarding this, because it seems that the edge issues, like the really bad situations, are always used as the reason why, right? So, you're telling somebody to stay in a marriage that's bad for them. Are you victim blaming? Are you doing that? And it seems that there's almost this insistence in the Muslim community, in our community, to want things to go to the extreme or to characterize them in the extreme, because it's easier to say the marriage failed because there was abuse, the marriage failed because there was infidelity, their marriage failed because of whatever, instead of saying, hey, the marriage was failing because of lack of communication, incompatibility, XYZ. And that couldn't be possible because we're perfect. Therefore, it's not failing because of those. I'm wondering what you guys have seen with regards to that, because I have this innate feeling that a lot of times things are characterized much worse than they are, as an excuse for the individuals as well as the community to not really face the facts that we have character flaws and those need to be dealt with. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, the excuse that I hear a lot is, like you said, everyone's trying to identify, and when they come to me, they try to give me a whole spiel and try to convince me why they're getting a divorce. Honestly, for my job, it doesn't really make a difference. But one thing that I'm hearing more and more is narcissist. Like my guy's a narcissist, and it's almost like, Sheikh, what you're talking about is that there's nothing else to really say. They weren't being abused. They're providing financially. They're doing this, they're doing that, but he's a narcissist. And so this label is put on. And so, yes, I do see our community going to try to put a label so that other people, they feel justified in the divorce that they're seeking.
I would agree with that. What Sheikh Joe mentioned, that the idea of conflating these two extremes, right? Like, oh, if they ended the relationship and it ended off on a sour note, oh, there must have been abuse for sure. The husband was doing this. There absolutely is an abuse issue as well, right? Because I mean, I remember as a young man, and now this past year alone, is just hearing of Muslim men taking the lives of their children, of their ex-wives. This is a commonplace as well. Those are conversations that need to be had as well. And the idea of talking about domestic violence, being able to talk about, different places like An-Nisa and different organizations that help women and men as well, DV victims, there's Daya, there's various organizations. But at the same time, you can't just lump together someone who's having a difficult relationship and say that, oh, that's the same situation as if it's domestic violence or it's emotional, all these other things that are happening. So to have those conversations, I mean, I've been in chaotic situations, Babali, I'm sure you've been in there as well in terms of Clubhouse. It can be, someone has an agenda, right? They're coming in and they're saying, I saw this in my community. I saw personal hurt over here. How dare you tell someone to stay in a relationship, right? They come at you attacking with their own personal baggage or with somebody else's information. And yes, that might be valid, but the conversations have to be properly centered. What are we talking about, right? Right now, at this point, we're talking about individuals who are having difficulties in their relationship. And when they're not able to communicate properly, maybe the intimacy is lacking, maybe finances, maybe it's in-laws, maybe it's the languages of love, maybe it's the way how they're dealing with conflict. It's these individuals. We're not talking about realms of abuse, because if we're talking about realms of abuse, we have Islamic guidance for that. The Messenger of Allah said, "La darara wa la dirar." There absolutely is no harm to be done to anyone, and nor is there any reciprocal harm, right? Once someone, causes you harm, you're not going to come back and start causing them harm and trying to, take everything that they've made and try to destroy this person. We're not people of vengeance like this. So for us, being able to differentiate those conversations is important. That conversation absolutely needs to be had about domestic violence and those realms, and also those individuals who are not struggling with abuse situations, but situations where they are not getting along, where if a little bit of help in terms of communication was given, a little bit of help in terms of financial management was given, it would give them a better foundation in their relationship, inshallah.
So I know we've come. Yeah,
okay.
Baba, please, no, please. Final thoughts from Baba. I know we're coming up at 2 hours. I think yeah, mashallah, 2 hours. I have an appointment at 1:30. I know Sheikh does as well. But any final thoughts, inshallah, as we wrap here? I had so many more questions and so many ideas that I wanted to talk about, but subhanallah, the time flew.
We'll need a round two, I think. That's probably what this is asking for.
No,
but maybe we can pass it to Sheikh Joe for final comments first, just because he has to leave by 25. So maybe final comments of Sheikh Joe.
I spoke more than enough. Baba has something to say.
So I'll say it quickly, inshallah. So I think one of the things that a common issue that we're having, and I think this is kind of wraps everything together, is that we don't have the same resilience as maybe possibly the previous generation. The smallest things we now get divorced over. I know as soon as we say, oh, divorce, everyone assumes that all these divorces must be physical abuse, infidelity, but the reality is the majority of these are not all infidelity. If it is, then there's a big issue in the Muslim community that 50% of the people are abusing each other or 50% are sleeping with all these different people. That's not a realistic thing. If you talk to imams, talk to divorce attorneys, they'll say, no, it's not even all that. It's the in-laws got involved and so-and-so got involved. All these other issues got put into together. No one has physically abused anybody, whatever. So, but you can't say that, because as soon as you say that, people are going to say, oh, but I know someone who got abused. Yeah, you're the exception. You're not talking about our 90% of the people for these reasons. The main thing is we're lacking resilience. We're lacking the same resilience the previous generation had, that every time we go through a conflict, we don't rush to the divorce button. We don't hit the nuclear button every time something goes wrong. We have to be able to realize that, hey, no matter how bad the situation is, it's just temporary. It's like our religion. Just because things get bad for a moment, you don't leave Islam. You have resilience to go push forward, and we will be tested. The whole life is a test. Marriage itself is not. There's a reason why it's half your deen. It's half of your test. You're expecting to walk in and just walk straight into paradise. It's not going to walk like that. It doesn't work that way. So you have to go in with the mentality like you go to Hajj. If you go into Hajj with the mentality that everything's going to go perfect, my dinner, my breakfast, my lunch, everything's going to be there, you're going to have a very tough situation, because everything does not go perfect. You will have ups and downs. It's a test for you. So when you go into marriage, don't go in the mentality that everything's going to be perfect for you. It's not. Go in with the mentality that, hey, I'm going to have some challenges. We're going to have miscommunication. There's going to be days where we won't talk to each other. We won't like each other. I'm not always going to be happy. But no matter how bad the storm is, it is a storm that will pass through. And when the smoke clears, I'll have my husband, I'll have my wife, and we're going to make it work. That should be the mentality. That should be the way we're going to do things differently. Because until we do have a different mentality, we're going to copy the same mindset of the current people that are getting divorced left and right, and we're not going to fix anything. I'm not speaking.
Jazakumullahu khairan to all of you for joining and taking out your time here. The whole point of this was not just to sit and talk about problems and pontificate and et cetera, right? What we want to do here, inshallah, and the goal, myself, Sheikh Joe, Imam Mahad, and I know Baba Ali is doing a lot of work too, is to give, inshallah, the listeners a solution, something that we can give our kids. So if you may have heard, and I know Imam Mahad has talked about it in this video, is that we did start, Alhamdulilah Rabbil Alameen, a Nikah Masterclass, okay? And in this Nikah Masterclass, inshallah, we are going to be talking about how to find a spouse, these values that we've been talking about, the problems of modernity. There's going to be handouts and quizzes and things like that. Sheikh Joe, inshallah, is going to be talking about the Islamic aspect of marriage and how to divorce properly under Islamic law. Inshallah, I'll be covering the legal aspects of marriage and divorce. And because I think, honestly, the biggest antidote to this problem is education, as we've kind of highlighted and, referred to over and over again. So I do hope, inshallah, that this was a beneficial endeavor for all of you, inshallah. I do hope that I encourage all of you to sign up and have your family sign up, especially those who are looking to get married, to sign up for the Nikah Masterclass. I'm telling you, the value that's being provided in this short class, it's a 2-day, 8-hour class. The value is way more than what we're charging. I can promise you that, inshallah. And with that, I don't want to keep anybody longer. I know Sheikh Joe has to go, but inshallah, keep us in your du'as, comment, share this video with those around. And again, Jazakumullahu khairan to all of you.